immensely love about the track is, that's, something that, you enjoy watching these drivers being tested, especially with the circuit, as opposed to go to a place like Sochi. And apart from it being the most soulless track ever to grace the Formula One calendar, it's, you can make mistakes and very, very little often does it punish you. Whereas with Monaco, you make a mistake, gone. So, yeah, that's why, when you look at qualifying, it's something when you're like, well, this is great. This is peak F1. And then you get to the race, they go down to Santa Bot, like, great. Okay, the race is over. Screw this. So that's why the love-hate relationship thing comes up, really.
That is maybe the best thing that it's so tight, so you do get punished for mistakes, where, Sochi is really not. I thought about Sochi, I was like, oh, it's bad, but I feel like we've just been unlucky with a few bad races there that haven't, worked out. But then it was like so many years added up where I was like, Sochi was bad again. I was like, no, the track is just awful.
It's a sponge cake with no flavour. It's honestly just completely soulless as a track. Honestly,
I think it's worse than Abu Dhabi. I'd probably say that, to be honest. I think before I used to think Abu Dhabi was the worst track, but maybe I think Sochi is worse now. But I mean, it's hard to pick, what's worse.
Yeah, very true. It's just, what can you do though? I think there's one track in St. Petersburg in Russia. It's Agora Drive, but it's such a weird name. I just call it Iguana Drive. But
is it grade 1 list or?
It apparently is grade 1. Although I've seen cars drive around it, I'm just like, it's touch and go as to whether or not it's suitable for Formula One cars, but it's certainly way better in terms of character and passing opportunities, everything like that with Sochi. Not that that's a terribly high bar to clear, but still, I think there is movement to move the race to Iguana Drive, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's interesting, but I don't know. I suppose they spent all this money on Sochi and it's very fancy, and I know they I think the Russian government quite likes Sochi as this kind of internal holiday spot, and they like to push that. So I don't know if maybe you might. I don't think we'll see it moving from Sochi anytime soon. But what do you think about the kind of street tracks? Is the new thing that all the new tracks tend to be street tracks. I think basically because you don't need to put as much kind of investment in. But what do you think about them? Like Miami, Saudi? Obviously, we're only going to theoretically go for the Saudi Grand Prix in 6 months or so. But
yeah. I mean, they're kind of parkland. They're in, a lot of them is in sort of, not necessarily on streets like Marina Bay is, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got the document for what it takes to get, tracks up to FIA grade 1, and it's just ridiculous. For example, the front straight must not have any more than 2 degrees worth of gradient. It's like, okay. We go on tracks which substantially more, we still race at them. Why create new circuits like this?
I was going to say, like Imola, the main straight has like a big kink in it, but we just raced there like a month or so.
I mean, it's as in elevation, not
about, sorry, like elevation.
But they've got to be X amount of meters wide, basically enough for planes to land on. It's got these whole set of rules. Yet they say, but we can race at places like Zandvoort where you could barely fit 2 cars on there. It's, it's madness. So to create this track, in general, it's more expensive than if you were to do a street race. Yeah. So that's why they prefer street racing. But they're just cookie cutter. You know what I mean? Like we have a look at Miami and Jeddah, and you're like, great. We didn't ask for them. We didn't need them. And now the best part of them all is that they look extremely bland. Kudos, Formula One. Continue upping yourself.
Well, they did the big sort of press thing about how fast the average speed around Saudi was, but it didn't look like there was too many obvious. It was like, it was hard with Saudi because some of the things they kind of almost tried, I thought, I kind of like that. They tried to do like a a lot of like little flowing S corners, but you just looked at it and thought like, I just don't see how they're going to be much overtaking in that at that track. Miami is a bit of a harder one. I haven't really looked at it that much, but it looked, I don't know, it looked sort of not great, but as I said, I don't, I'm not some kind of track expert who's like analyzing.
Well, put it to you this way, it looks very similar to the Hanoi Vietnam track. If you've raced it in the games, you'll know it. And I say it's like that for the wrong reasons. Basically, it's, like, the less said about it, the better. I'll put it that way. Like, yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't get this. There's rumors abound that they're going to be going back to South Africa, which is great. We need, to be going to these places with, significance in motor racing history, going to all the continents, all that stuff. Having a race in Saudi Arabia, I mean, what's the significance of that? Having a race in Miami, great, okay, fine. We need another American street track. They have a lifespan of, I don't know, the goldfish that you get as a child. In other words, in about 2 days, it's gone. So, like, it's this fascination with, going for these high profile spots. And it didn't work in the 80s. I don't see how it's going to be working now just because a few people have joined out of watching DTS and all this stuff. No hate to all the DTS fans, of course.
Yeah, it certainly seems, it's a bit, I don't know, it does seem a bit short-termist because you go to these kind of, or even like, Miami's all very big and glitzy, and I imagine Saudi will be giving a lot of money to bring the race there, but then if the racing's really crap, you're going to end up with no fans, pretty much.
Well, I mean, it's a 10-year contract apiece.
Oh, honestly, I didn't know it's 10 years for each. I assumed it would be some decent amount of time because that's how they like to, well, the newer tracks tend to get that. Obviously, you get like then, felt like for a few years, Hockenheim was always on like every single year. They was always asking, is this the last time we're going to go to Hockenheim? They never knew. And now it is, right? I don't think there's no plans to go back there now, is there? I don't think, to Hockenheim.
Not for the German Grand Prix. I think really the want for the German Grand Prix is down due to, racing being held behind a paywall, no dominance in German drop. Even back in 2016, even when they had Nico Rosberg and Sebastian Vettel, even then they were struggling. So what do you do, honestly, in that situation? It's like, great, okay, we got some drivers that are performing extremely well, but you can't get people to watch this stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's a difficult one, but they said steadfast, we are going to be racing in Saudi Arabia for 10 years. It's like, great, just what we need, just what we want. This is definitely the news I wanted to hear today.
It's just the way they're so. It's like the one thing like FOM is actually like super committed to. Like normally they're very kind of like a bit flip-floppy and not like just laying out their clear path. But the one thing they're like, yeah, Saudi, definitely 100%. And it's just not ideal, really, is it? It's, I don't know. It's a hard thing. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, that's the thing. I've never claimed to be like super smart with tracks and all that, but I do. The thing is, it's because I know people who have watched Drive to Survive and stuff like that, and they've sort of given F1 a bit of a go in the last year or two. And I know a lot of people who've like kind of tried it and just found it a little bit dull, basically. I know people who sort of just like watched a little bit of like, and now they might vaguely, like I got loads of my friends to join Fantasy F1, even though I didn't watch F1, and like they might flick onto it and try and watch the race, but I just feel like a lot of them just get quite bored watching it. And it's like obviously part of it, F1 isn't for everyone, but I do think that a lot of people are being put off by not great racing.
Yeah, well, I mean, these new rigs should help. Just with what they're proposing, like it's not going to bunch the field up. It's just going to allow for better racing, and I think really that's really what's been missing. I mean, apart from Mercedes running away with things, I don't think there's really been too much of an issue with regards to how close everyone else is. So it's just them being able to race each other, and that's always been a problem. But no, these new rigs are promising to solve a lot of that. And when that does, then maybe we'll see better racing. Maybe we won't. This will be a whole lot of cack. But we've got to try something.
Yeah.
Because when even Formula One fans are snoozing by lap 10, there's a problem.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about the 2022 regs, because when we had Will on here, he kind of went into a bit more of well, not hugely, but he went into the technical side a little bit, and he was explaining how he said it will be he expects a much bigger shake-up than 2014, and he was he wasn't necessarily optimistic, because he talked about field spread with new regs and everything, but he was very optimistic that it should be a massive shake-up, and that hopefully should be at least the potential for lots of overtaking. Obviously, if the cars are very spread out, you get less of that, But so are you? You obviously said maybe. Then would you say you're more, optimistic or pessimistic about the 2022 regs? I mean, they've been coming for a while, so you'd hope they've been able to make them good.
Yeah, I definitely see the improvements coming. And I know my voice is creating a sonic boom over there. But I think really, I got no idea which team is going to be better positioned once this thing comes out. Because, as the one team I'm going to be looking at with interest is Aston Martin. And the reason I say that is because at the moment, they're getting a little bit better. They're still not there. And I think Monaco, I'm not certain that was entirely representative of where they actually were. There was one race. For the other four, they were kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But they've got investment from Laurence Stroll. That guy's got money. He's got knowledge of where to take the team. So with that kind of investment, in the future, and with that kind of racing brain within him, that team is as in good position to take advantage of all that. But whether or not they actually execute it is another deal. If they do, then what potential they may have for sure. But having said that, Mercedes are also saying they're focusing on their 2020 car. If they pull it off, and very well they may very well do that, then nothing changes. And from what I'm hearing right now, Bottas has been given the boot, and George Russell's been taken up for a 2-year contract at Mercedes, going on from next year. So that's probably going to be about as complete a driver lineup as you're going to get on the grid.
That's the thing.
Yeah. It can go any way. I mean, you look back to 2009. Who were the forefront? Who was at the forefront? It was Braun, Williams, and Toyota initially, and then Red Bull was also
that started with the double diffuser, right? Those three teams, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and they're the two top teams in that championship were Red Bull and Braun, which previously, was Honda. Look at where they were at the end of 2008, and tell us again that you expected the two top teams to be Red Bull and Braun. Like, you can't predict this stuff, really. It's about who's better positioned, who executes these new regulations immediately. And the question is, really, who would you look at as being in a better position? And really, I think Mercedes is there. Red Bull, I think, are going to be caught out a bit, with them being dead set on this year rather than a few years coming, and they may be trapped out by that. Ferrari, I think they said they're going to be focusing. Williams, Aston have both got tremendous investment, even though they're maybe not at the forefront right now. So you can't predict who's going to be there, which is great. You just know that Mazepin's not winning the championship is all. But that's the only only conclusion we could draw right now.
That's the thing I thought about Haas. It's like they're doing their big thing. They were like, oh, we're completely focusing on 2022. Nothing on 2021. It's like, the amount of employees Haas have, and compared to like Mercedes, I imagine Mercedes are already got more people than Haas focused on the 2022 season, just because like I think Haas has like less than 200 employees, and Mercedes has over 1,000. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but the disparity. And I just think like even the whole Haas team focusing on 2022, surely it's going to get like easily swamped by Mercedes. But obviously, it's hard to. It's to be fair though, because if they just find that one thing that like a double diffuser or whatever, that just makes them really quick, I suppose anything could happen. But yeah, I said that about Red Bull where to Will, I thought they might be focusing too much on this season, but Will was kind of pushing back on that. He was like, no, I think they're smarter than that. They've all this team, this kind of Horner Newey alliance or whatever at the top of Red Bull. They've been through the change in 2014, and they got a bit caught out there to an extent. And it's like he expected them to be smart and not focus too much on this season. Where I sort of made the argument. I was like, they haven't won a championship in ages. They've got this great chance this year. They're going to be giving everything for that just so they can get one more championship. And then it was like, no, their wiser heads will prevail. So that is an interesting one. I feel like Red Bull might be caught out for next season because of that. But some people,
I mean, you just don't know. It's a total unknown, which makes it pretty awesome. And before my videos age completely horribly, as they always do, and next thing you know, and the winner of the first race this year, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Okay, things totally going against me here. You just don't know, and that's what makes next season so exciting. We don't know who is going to win the championship. We don't know who's going to be at the front. We don't know who's going to be at the back. So,
it's such a weird thing with F1. It's like I feel like almost fans aren't as excited enough for next season as they should be, because it's literally like everything could change. Like the whole order could be completely topsy-turvy. But I feel like, especially maybe because 2020 was so dominant for Merc, I feel like so many people were like, oh, Mercedes will be able to focus on 2022 and they'll just be dominating again. And I feel like not enough F1 fans are like, oh my God, next season is going to be as apparently a bigger shake-up than 2014. I think Will said bigger than 2009, or he said around maybe 2009 levels, I think. But yeah, I feel like next season isn't, I guess maybe because we'll focus on this season and it's been quite good so far. People aren't, they're not like needing to look forward to 2022, but I feel like it's not getting enough kind of excitement.
Yeah, I mean, we're 5 races in. That's the thing we need to keep in mind. Like, we're not even a quarter of the way into this. So when people were asking, for example, why is Ricciardo struggling so badly? Why is is Mazepin improving? Will Max win the championship? Merc coming back, Aston improving? It's like, we don't know. We're not going to know for another 7 races. But I mean, already we could see that Red Bull are in the best position to win the championship since arguably 2013. No, I don't think there's been a time, since then where they've been in such a good position.
Yeah,
and of course, you got Max in there, who this may sound blasphemous, but I think he's the modern day Ayrton Senna, just with how naturally gifted he is behind the wheel, and his legions of bloody fans that will hound you if you don't say he's the best in the world. But it's there, so you got that very potent combination with Red Bull, and then over at Mercedes, of course, you got the faultless team led by Sir Lewis, who, while he and Max are extremely close on raw pace levels, Lewis is indisputably the most complete driver on the grid, one of the best of all time. Even though, to me, there is no GOAT. Like, it's each decade has a completely different style of car, completely different types of racing. You cannot determine who's the best out of that, but you can unequivocally say that Lewis is one of the best of all time, just by nature of how he's done things and the teammates he's up against. So now you got those 2 different types of figures there. You got, the young driver who's kind of Senna-esque against this figurehead who supposedly can do no wrong, and just 5 races in, it's already getting spicy. If it comes down to just a handful of points down at Abu Dhabi, well, we know that Max doesn't give up, and Lewis never ever yields a championship. So an immovable force meets a brick object, whatever the hell the bloody idiom is. But yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, irresistible force meets an unmovable object, something like that. Yeah.
That's one.
So yeah, I hadn't really thought about talking about the. I do think the greatest of all time debate is, it's odd. The idea of like comparing like Fangio and Lewis just seems a bit weird to me, in the sense that it's basically like a different class of racing. Like obviously it's all still Formula One, but I do think that it's kind of it just seems odd. And even with like statistics, like all of Lewis's race wins, but it's like in the 50s when Fangio was racing, what, it was like less than 10 races a season. So obviously you only have a sort of finite. You only have a sort of finite amount of time where you can. Obviously Fangio raced till he was very old, but you only have a certain amount of time where you're still going to have your kind of reflexes there at a young enough age. So even comparing that, it's not really. I suppose you do it on percentages, but it's all kind of it's a bit much of a muchness, really.
Well, I mean, like that's the thing. Gilles Villeneuve and Stefan Beloff never won a championship, either of them. But the people who know, they know how good both of them were. I don't think anyone would be putting Jacques Villeneuve ahead of either of them. So, not in driving and certainly not in music. But, the point is that statistics can only tell you so much. At the end of the day, what you really need to look at is the racing, of course. But it's so different from decade to decade. It's pointless to try and say, Hamilton's better than Fangio because he got more wins. No kidding. Totally different era. Not only, and besides, one of those rounds back in the 50s, one of them was Indianapolis, and you had to choose. Do I want to race in France or do I want to race at 500? You had to choose between one of them. You couldn't do both. So quite apart from the scheduling stuff, if you go off today in Formula One, you slide gracefully into this nice little car park they got on the side of the road, which they call the runoff. You're encapsulated with the halo, with all these safety measures. And if you do hit the wall, it's covered in this sort of safe barrier blanket, or fluffy pillow kind of contraption. If you went off back in the 50s, sometimes you had a choice of whether it was a house or a tree or another spectator. Whatever took your fancy. Either way, whatever you saw coming towards you, that was what was going to kill you. There was no second chances a lot of the time. So it's totally different era of racing, which is why I just don't compare the two, But, what do I know?
Yeah, I feel like it's just because all sports love to, I guess it's just like a sports fans thing. They always want to find I guess because sports fans always are quite opinionated about the sport that they follow and everything. It's easy to kind of want to compare the ultimate best. But yeah, it's just as I said, it's like compared to decades ago, it's like a different racing series, basically. Or like I said about like with Indy, and like Jim Clark was in like F1, F2, and like loads of other series at the same time. And, imagine that would obviously just be completely ludicrous now. Like, how would that, I don't think the schedule would even allow for that to, well, I guess you could do the F2 races in the morning and then go straight into the F1 race if you wanted to do both. But yeah, it'd be slightly, it just wouldn't be feasible. Or was it John Surtees was a motorbike world champion as well? That's like, obviously that's a mental idea now, but that's how it was at the time. So yeah, it is basically completely different. Going back to 2021, the season. What are you making of it so far? Are you pleasantly surprised? I feel like most people are surprised at how close the fight is. As I said, in 2020, most people were sort of imagining another relatively easy year of Merc domination. I don't think anyone before testing, really predicted how close Red Bull were going to be. I don't know. Maybe loads of people are feeling very vindicated right now, but I was certainly thrown by it anyway.
Have a look at my predictions video. I said that Max was going to win the title. even before the season started. And the reason I said that was because Red Bull are a team that traditionally do extremely well toward the end of the year. They just needed a good start. And I felt, with the Regs frozen mainly, with them starting where they finished off in 2020, that this was going to be their best chance in ages, provided Merck don't catch up. And at the end of testing, I looked at it and I said, Red Bull are unequivocally the best. You can clearly see that they're the best, and Merck were legitimately struggling. You could see that the car was pretty nervous at the rear end, especially with the wind. And how they fixed it in that time, I don't know. That's just the team that they are. They fixed a problem which seemed, like it couldn't be solved simply with the setup, and they bloody well did that. I don't know how, they just did it. So what you had at the end of the day was a Mercedes team which was there or thereabouts, but a Red Bull team which, I don't think, again, that really there was any chance to sort of predict how close exactly it's been. And right now it could swing either way. Do I still think Max is winning the championship? Yeah. I just don't know how close it's going to be at the end. And really, I guess, can't complain about that, can't I?
Do you think that Max winning the championship, do you think by the end of the season the Red Bull will be sort of comfortably the faster car, or do you think it will just be touch and go pretty even all year?
I don't know, because, Mercedes say they're not going to stop concentrating on 2021 just for the sake of winning this championship. So if Red Bull come out with upgrades that help their cause and make their car faster, then, Merck are going to be a bit of a sitting duck. Having said that, if anyone is going to extract the most out of a car, it's Lewis, So he's going to do what he can to win the championship. And if there is any hope for Merck to do so, then they're going to do that. But you don't know. It's a total unknown at this stage. I guess we're going to have some clue by the time of Spa, pretty much.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Spa normally I feel like Monza sometimes gets a big upgrade package, but then Monza isn't after Spa this year. It's got Netherlands in between. So yeah, around that time of just after the summer break is where you're going to kind of see where exactly the pace is. What do you think? I'm sorry. Now you say it, I remember you saying about Max winning the championship. I think it's because when we had Will on 2 weeks ago, his big prediction for 2021 was that Sebastian Vettel was going to win a race, and I brought it up during the call, and he was much less confident about that from the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to say with Aston at the moment because obviously everyone's on a high after Monaco, but it is one race. It's a location where, and there were a lot of one-offs that weekend. Ferrari were way up there in pace. Mercedes were way down on pace.
I was going to say, yeah.
No, so there was a bit of moving and shaking, which was a bit rapid for it to be a genuine pace thing. So I'm just holding guard on my optimism on Seb at the moment. It's a bit like, is so-and-so improving? It's like, well, hang on, you got to give it a few races. One race doesn't make an entire season. So just let them race. And then we can decide whether or not they're improving. Because you don't want to say, oh, Seb's on the up, and then in the next race he doesn't make it out of Q1. It's like, okay, so who's lying here? Who is completely out of their depth when it comes to predicting stuff?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I think, Seb winning a race this year at least, that's very optimistic.
Yeah.
Having said that, what I predicted at the start of this year was that Lance was going to win a race. So someone's winning in that Aston through circumstance or whatever. But
I was going to say for Lance, maybe a wet situation, especially quali and race day like Turkey.
Well, he is genuinely one of the best in the wet, which you can't hold on to that gimmick forever. That's why I want him to do GT racing instead. Go to World Endurance Championship, because he does that. He'll be world champion over and over again because he's that type of driver. He's great at adaptable conditions. He's great at adapting to conditions. He's great in long runs, great with race strategy. It's every ingredient that you need. But when it comes to pure pace, I want to put Lance in the top 10. Something against him. It's just, that's the way the cookie crumbles. But last year, who would have predicted that 2 race winners would have been Pierre Gasly and Checo Perez? We all love them, but who really predicted it at the start of the year?
Yeah, exactly. So
sometimes things happen in races, and sometimes you just get these wacky winners. That's Formula One for you.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought, this just seems like the year that he's going to do it. It'll be a weird situation. It won't be totally of, the norm.
Yeah, it won't be. Well, I don't think anyone was expecting an Aston win on pure pace at the start of the season. I mean, maybe some people were, but
no, and I don't think anyone will be predicting it now. Just
certainly not.
Again, I'm not taking anything away from Seb or Aston Martin, but there was a lot of weird things that happened in Monaco. So we're going to know properly, in the next few races, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say about what you said about people getting excited over one race. I feel like that kind of happened this year with Yuki Tsunoda. Like, I think he's a great talent, but it was like after Bahrain, because he came, was it P9? I think in Bahrain, 9th or 10th.
I think it was P9, and I remember people saying,
everyone was
the best rookie in years. I was like, it's one race.
I know, and they were like, Gasly's going to be struggling. He's going to be behind his teammate. That could really damage his career. That because it was like after one race, that was the narrative.
I heard heaps of people saying that. Heaps of people saying, Gasly's going to be, Tsunoda's going to wipe the floor with him. I'm just like, well, hold your horses. You're giving this guy a whole smorgasbord of hype here. If this falls on its ass,
especially because in Bahrain, Gasly qualified really well, quite firmly ahead of Tsunoda. He just admittedly quite stupidly ran into the back of the McLaren, but it was so he has a really good quali, and then just gets something that compromises his car, by his own fault. But then just that was enough for everyone to start writing off Gasly. No, Tsunoda's so much better than him.
It's just weird. I really don't. I didn't understand it initially, and I don't understand it now. And what I mean by that is I didn't understand why people were touting Tsunoda as big as they did, because he's certainly a very good talent. He deserves to be in Formula One, but I didn't see him as being this, talent that people were touting, better than the likes of, I don't know, Lewis Hamilton in his first year in 2007. Really? He was better than that? No, that's that's better. Better than Max Verstappen. Better than Max Verstappen passing on the outside in Spa in his Toro Rosso with no fear and doing all these amazing things. Better than that.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a way to introduce someone. And of course he's struggled, and it's just like, this is why you give drivers time. I'm still giving Tsunoda time, but people already writing him off. It's like, you have gone from saying he's one of the best rookies in years to saying that he doesn't deserve to be in Formula One. In 5 races, in the span of 5 races, you come to these 2 different conclusions.
The 2 extremes.
It proves how many people in F1 Twitter community are unhinged. But I know I'm rich to say that. But, coming from a guy that does really bad drawings for a living, I think really, for me, Tsunoda is, is a bit of a weird one. I don't understand with personally when it comes to the Japanese racing talent. We of course know that Japan fosters some amazing racing drivers, but the best never really seem to make it to Formula One. People say Takuma Sato, Kamui Kobayashi, Yuki Tsunoda. To that I say 3 drivers in that time who that all these were around. 3 drivers who never made it to Formula One, but were better than all these 3. Satoshi Moriyama, Naoki Yamamoto, Ritomo Miyata. And for the racing nuts who know and follow their careers, they'll say, yeah, they should have been in Formula One. But one had backing from a company and the other one didn't, and had to stay in Japan. It's weird. It astounds me, and those drivers especially are not necessarily troublemakers, if you get what I'm on about. They were very grounded. They were fast, but they were grounded once. Whereas, Sato and Kobayashi were extremely fast, but they had the problem of not liking to finish races with all of the wheels on their car. And Yuki, he displayed some of that in Formula 2, and I'm a bit worried, of course. And I don't think he needs to tone down his attitude necessarily with the swearing and stuff. That's just his personality. There's nothing wrong with it, just as long as it doesn't hinder.
I feel like people are just jumping on that because the racing results haven't been that good. Honestly, you see a driver, I mean, how many top athletes in the world, probably swear and get angry when they're, doing whatever sport they're in. Obviously, all of them.
Everyone does it. Everyone does it. It's just, people are just trying to find reasons as to why the results aren't there. I'll tell you why the results aren't there. He's a rookie. Give him time, for goodness sake. You're the one who gave him the legend of John Henry's hammer. Just because it's not coming now, don't pile that on him. It's not his fault that you thought what you thought. It astounds me with a lot of these fans of the F1 Twitter community who know all this stuff. Honestly, with Tsunoda, give him the year. Give him the year. I mean, last year, how many people were writing off Ocon? I was like, the dude just came out of a year hiatus and he's up against Daniel Ricciardo in a brand new team. Come on, what are you expecting?
And he got a lot better at the end of the season, and people were still like, "Oh no." He
was getting closer and closer and closer to Ricciardo on pace as the year went on. I was like, you can't not notice this. He wasn't there, but he was getting much closer. And of course, at the start of this year, he's been incredible. It's like, this is why you need to give people time. Ricciardo's struggling. Give him races to sort out his issues. I believe they sort of found out why it was down to his driving style and it was inducing understeer. It's like, well, that can be solved. It's just going to take time to adapt to that stuff. Or why Mazepin is struggling so badly. Look, Mazepin's an idiot, but, he's not that bad on natural pace. He is better than what you're seeing here. That stuff needs to be nurtured. There needs to be time for that. People just expect too much out of these situations, Very rarely does someone come in and immediately, tear the house down. The only one who is so far this year is Sainz. And that's because Sainz is a better driver than what a lot of people give him credit for.
100%. And he is used to being buffeted around. He's at Toro Rosso basically. Well, originally he went to Renault. People were expecting him to come back into the Red Bull family, but then they kind of left him and he was out on his own. And then he was basically dumped at Renault and he had to quickly just find this McLaren seat going. He's used to coming into teams and sort of being, having to be really kind of scrappy and getting used to places quick. So I feel like people maybe aren't giving that side of his experience credit. Obviously he's a very quick driver, but and people recognize that, but those pre-McLaren years people almost aren't talking about as part of the reason he's good. But I think that's some really useful experience to have kind of had to fight for your spot in F1 and adapt to these new places really quickly. And I think that is what's really showing. Checo, amazing driver, but everyone was expecting him to go in, settle in so quickly to Red Bull. It's like he's been driving that now Aston Martin, but Force India, whatever it was called, as he was there since 2014. you know, he's been at that team for 6 years. He must have been so settled, and through, you know, changes of owners, he might have been one of the longest serving staff in the, well, no, I know there's people there from the Jordan days, but, you know, he was there for ages, and people sort of didn't appreciate that when he came to Red Bull, and now he's kind of, I think he's not been as bad as some people have made out. You know, he just hasn't quite been able to thread a weekend together, but he's shown plenty of, you know, he'll either, normally a few weekends it's been, he's had a dodgy qualifying and then he has a good race. Like that was like Bahrain and
in Monaco wasn't great qualifying, but he raced pretty damn well.
There you go.
I mean,
Monaco
that's
was
always
like
been Checo's thing, though. He's never been a great qualifier. Like, I know some people will shoot me over that. I can no longer go on the streets of Mexico City, but you know, the whole point really is that Red Bull needed a driver there in the race that could cause problems for Mercedes. He is the driver for that. He's one of the best race drivers there that they could have gotten. But again, qualifying never was his game. And instead, he's going up against Max, who is one of the most naturally gifted drivers that has been around for a while. That's a pretty, you know, but there's a bit of, you would expect a bit of a gulf there. And I was saying, heading into this year, you got to expect Checo to be a fair way back. Not because Checo's not good, but this is the caliber of teammate he's up against, and he's going to be in a team where they're all around Max. You don't have people like Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon coming in and being that far off the pace with nothing being amiss. Like, there's clearly something going on. So you would have to expect the same thing of Checo, and the exact same thing is happening to Checo, although he's dealing with it better, because he's been in the game for 10 years now, as opposed to Pierre or Alex, who were thrown in just because Marco was seeing something with them out of his glass eye. No, but, you know, like, what honestly is it this year with people expecting something straight out of the box?
Yeah. I think you said about everyone going too fast. It's weird. I feel like F1 fans always criticize the teams for, like, not giving drivers enough of a long chance, or, you know, being too quick to drop people and drop things around. But then it's like, you do that with your, you know, like the way Tsunoda's been suddenly shouted as the best thing, and now they're saying he's not good enough. And it's like, you can't criticize the teams for having the same mentality as you. I feel like, yeah. I suppose it's kind of the same in all, you know, social media. It's a place that encourages kind of big snap judgments where it's like, yeah, he's the best thing ever, no, he's the worst thing ever, you know. That's what's going to kind of get engagement or whatever, but there you go. I wanted to ask about sprint qualifying. How are you feeling about that?
I won't know till it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, we don't know how it's going to be. It's a little bit oxymoron, though. Like, it's like, what honestly are we going to expect here? The only thing that could possibly shake the grid up to a level which they're hoping for is if someone has a prang.
Yeah.
And, like, then someone will get thrown down the back of the grid, and then it may be interesting. But, you know, that's basically playing the lottery here. And people will say, it's not Formula One. Well, I mean, there have been a lot of Grand Prix where it was determined by heat races, you know. It's not out of the DNA of a Grand Prix. It's just out of the DNA of Formula One. But it's nothing like reverse grid races where that is going against the grain, and that isn't what it's all about. But it's just a bit of I think, especially with the new regs coming in, I don't know if this is necessary.
Yeah, it does feel really weird to do it.
It's a band-aid on a war wound. It's
Sorry?
a band-aid on a war wound. Like, I mean, really, if you want to solve the issues wholesale, you know, there is a way that you could do it. I don't know, make the racing closer in terms of being allowing cars to follow each other. You know, improving, you know, the disparity of, you know, teams' expenditure in development and so forth, and they're doing that. But, you know, they're putting in all these things that are supposedly going to make it better. But I don't understand the purpose of sprint qualifying. What is it meant to achieve here? Really, when you think about it, what are we going to get out of it? And if the answer is, oh, just more track time, or there's potential for more carnage, if carnage is what you need to make better racing, then why not just switch over to NASCAR or go to your demolition derby?
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Or do the thing where sprinklers suddenly turn on in the middle of the race to make it a wet track that Bernie Eccleston wanted to put in.
I mean, he's a senile old man, but sometimes he's onto something. Probably has to do with that Brazilian farm he's living on, but still, I don't know.
It's weird.
We'll just see.
We'll
just see what happens at Silverstone.
It's a weird time to bring it in. Obviously, like the half season before a massive regulation shakeup. And yeah, it's weird because people are always saying, like, people go on, oh, this could, someone could, have a crash, or someone could mess up the first qualifying and then they have to go through the grid on the sprint race. But it's like, I suppose, there are things that can happen in the regular qualifying that massively mix up the grid, for Charles, they thought he was going to crash and take a penalty, or, when Daniel Ricciardo went out in Q1 earlier in the year, and it is kind of I feel like people are sort of imagining what the best of sprint qualifying could be and not like what it will actually be like. But I suppose I don't mind them trying it, but yeah, it's weird, and yeah, I'm not sure what they're trying to get out of it, because it's odd. It's weird, and I personally, I thought that the teams wouldn't go for it. I thought they'd be quite conservative with it. I was talking to Will, and he thought the teams would be quite up for going for it in the sprint quali. They try and gain a few places. But I suppose I just feel like in F1 normally teams tend to play it very safe, and I feel like it can be very easy for the sprint race to end up as a bit of a procession where people don't really want to risk anything particularly crazy.
That's the thing, though. That's it. You just hit the nail on the head. Racing teams don't want to risk anything just for the sake of a better grid position like that. Like, I mean, no, it's baffling, really. Like, I mean, what they're proposing, the teams are just going to play it safe for the main Grand Prix. If you throw in points for the top three, well, the teams are already spread so far apart that we just know who's going to get the top three. It's going to be a Hamburg bot.
Yeah, pretty much.
What are you achieving out of it? You're just putting on another podium on top of a podium that we've already getting for 3 years straight. What are we achieving here? Like, it's just, chasing tail over an issue which is going to be resolved hopefully by this time next year. What is this? Like,
it's odd. It's an odd one. I wanted to talk a little bit about, we'll move on from this season of F1. I was watching your podcast with Tomo, where you talked a bit about starting your YouTube channel, but I wanted to ask a bit more because you kind of were you just sort of said, oh yeah, there was nothing about Andrew Moda, so I just made a video. Did you have kind of aspirations of having a YouTube channel before that? Because it's quite, it's a relatively, something, I suppose it's not a big decision, but something you had to commit to, you had to actually go and make this video. And you kind of wanted a YouTube channel, or I knew you were interested in being in journalism, so maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it all started out, I just made a video because no one else made one on them.
It was literally just that simple, because that to me seems, because I have like a smallish YouTube channel, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to make this YouTube channel. It kind of was a big decision, where if you've just been like, oh, there was no video, I'll just make one. That seems quite surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the thing, it hasn't changed. My want to make videos hasn't changed. It's just a full-time occupation now. I mean, chasing subs isn't totally my game. Whenever I hit a mark, that's cool, but it's not the driving force behind me. There are just so many stories out there that I want to tell. And ironically, they all seem to have some kind of irony about them. I don't plan them; they just happen. Like, for example, the Carmen Jorda video I released not too long ago. I just found out today that the video I made on her, which was absolutely tearing her apart for being one of the worst examples of a racing driver ever, it just so happened to be released on her birthday, and I had no idea.
Oh yeah.
I'm one of the worst people when it comes to timing.
I was going to say, I watched that. Carmen Jordan video. It's doing pretty well for views. You'd think, because like she's not exactly a particularly well-known name. I'm just looking, it's got about 250k views. That's gone quite well. You are talking about subscriber milestones. You are pretty close to 200,000. I'm not sure. I don't know the exact number, but you're not far off. That should be a.
Well, YouTube analytics are having a bit of a problem at the moment. So, one thing's saying 199, the other one's saying 198. It's like, well, someone's lying here. But, no, so basically, when Andrea Moda went viral 6 months after I made it, I thought, okay, well, there's something here. I want to do something completely different. Because this community just takes itself too seriously a lot of the time, and we see that online. For me, I just wanted to be a bit of just myself, just have a freaking laugh. Now, I'm not deliberately trying to be funny. If people want to laugh at my stuff, cool. If not, whatever. It's just how I talk. And, it's having that kind of personality in amongst a sea of this all serious content, I think is what made it stand out, and but it was always the same. The delivery was different. It's all different, of course, but it's all there. All the information is there. I'm not skimping out just to make a joke. I really set out to just tell stories that no one else was, about Dan Ticktum, about racing in the Olympics, about all that jazz. And it hasn't changed nowadays. Obviously, with Carmen Jordan, no one really knows about her, but those that did knew just the story behind her, about how she was so detrimental to motorsport, women in motorsport, everything like that. And so the purpose of the video was not so much to tear her apart, but to say women can be successful in motorsport. Meanwhile, you got this one who not only is a worst example of a racing driver, but she's tearing that whole narrative down. Meanwhile, while she was racing in these categories, other women were winning around her.
She was like, she said basically women should aim for Formula E because they're not going to be able to get to Formula One. Didn't she say that? Or something very...
it was less physically demanding and easier goal to attain. It's just like, look, the driving style between these two is wholly different. With Formula E, the talent in that field is good enough for Formula One because half of them have been in Formula One and the other half were good enough for Formula One, didn't get there through money.
Yeah.
And these cars are closer together on tougher circuits, and the way you drive them, you genuinely push them to the absolute limit. You could tell. It's like watching a go-kart race with no sound.
Yeah.
It's just so, genuinely, it astounds me. And she drove a car which has power steering.
She was an F1 test driver, so she's basically saying that she couldn't drive the F1 car. It seems very
well. She didn't end up driving the car at all because she had to get within a certain time in the simulator. And from what I hear, she was way behind. And and apparently there were connections with her having relations with Tamara Eccleston. And the one vocal supporter of Jordan was Bernie Eccleston. And Bernie, back in that time, he ran Formula One. And of course, back then at the same time, Lotus also had Adelie Fong on, who was another glorified pay driver who really had no results to speak of. And they had that stupid contract with Kimi Räikkönen where they said if you get a point, you get a bonus check or whatever. They got something about 145 points that year. Just about bankrupted the company.
Yeah, they because they were quite good in 2015, but it bankrupted the company.
Well, it was 2013, but they were trying to recoup the losses.
Yeah.
That's why they also took on board Maldonado for 2014.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get back on points here.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. It's just a bonus that this has become a full-time occupation. So really, Yeah, I think because I started to do videos sort of properly full time about the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Then the channel started to boom about December, and in January when I was at a Toyota Racing Series event, I got a job at Autocar as a journalist.
Yeah.
And then I got to a stage where it's like, it's killing my channel because this, YouTube is quite a full-on thing, but journalism is even more so. You have to live journalism. So I had to choose between one of them. And so in the middle of a pandemic, I quit my job to be a YouTuber. And the first paycheck I got was the equivalent of about 380 quid for the month. I was just like, okay, it's a good thing I live in the most expensive place in the world. It says something when Auckland is more expensive than London. That gives you an idea of how expensive.
I was going to say, I didn't realise Auckland was the most expensive place in the world. I'm from London and assumed.
I mean, I think Zurich and whatever's up there, but we're definitely one of the most expensive places in the world. It is just crazy over here. So to get that lower paycheck, I was like, okay, this isn't good. But since then, releasing videos on the regular, and it's, I don't need to say that it's worked out for the better, of course, but it's all just, it's just a bonus for me. Now, I'm still enjoying making videos. I got ideas for donkeys, but the WTFs are planned out till the end of 2023. So I'm not wanting for ideas.
I feel like there's so much of especially with F1, about maybe a year or so ago, I feel like there's a lot of creators coming in because then there was so much of a gap for content, I feel like, with F1. F1 fans they're so nerdy and technical, or even like they love stories of all these kind of feeder series and these smaller drivers you might not have heard of. And you were kind of, obviously around a year ago you'd been doing quite well, but even like 12 months before that, it was kind of, there weren't many F1 YouTubers really that were pretty big. And you do just think, I'm surprised it took so long to fill a sport that has so many kind of like, sort of really passionate, like nerdy, detail-oriented people following it. I'm surprised. And the thing is, like, the best F1 YouTube videos, like you say, it's basically I feel like all you have to do is basically just pick something that F1 fans are going to be interested in, and just kind of explain it. Obviously, you put your very kind of, like, sort of satirical kind of, dry humor on it. But just even like a YouTuber like Aldas, I feel like his skill, I feel like his best skill is essentially, the title of his videos are almost always a question I've been thinking about already, and kind of be like, and then he'll just right at the right time make a video about it. And like, whatever you think of his video quality, I feel like that is something he's really good at. And I feel like that's the key to kind of F1 YouTubers, essentially just ask a question that people are going to go, oh yeah, I want to know about that actually, 100%. Like, I feel like that's the key to it. And that's what you do with like things like the W2F. You're like, oh yeah, what did happen to X, Maldonado, whatever, or, I'm just scrolling through your channel now, oh my God, when did Formula One almost race in the Soviet Union? Stuff like that is a question that just intrigues you, doesn't it? It makes you want to like jump into the video because you want to know more. I feel like that's kind of the key, is just to find a topic that people want to know about.
Well, even if they don't want to, I think what intrigues a lot of people is that I didn't know this, like if I already knew about it, why would I click on the video? For me, I've never really been about trying to find the popular topic. If it's a timely topic, yeah, I'll do it. So the Mercedes seat one, I thought, at that time, there was reports that Ocon was getting close to, the top of the preferred driver in the Merc list. I was like, okay, I need to do a timely video ahead of Monaco. This could be good. Have a look at all three drivers and go from there. So those are the timely ones. But the Carmen Jordan one, for example, that spent 12 months in development hell. There's a video coming out at the end of this year, which I first wrote the script for in 2019.
So and it's still not coming out until the end of this year, so it's still got another 6 months.
Cooking. So it's, as I said, there are so many stories I've got to tell, and a lot of people bite on them, irrespective of whether they know about them or not. for me, it's never really been about trying to fish for views, trying to find, new subscribers and so forth. If they come on board, fantastic. But I just know that the stories that I find, especially told in the way that they are, can intrigue whoever viewer. It could be casual, could be an F1 fanatic, anyone. But like I said, there's so many more to come. There's so many different weird stories out there that it's I'm just having a lot of fun just blatting rubbish online while chatting Formula One. It's just it's the dream job. That's 7 days a week, and there's about 70 or 80 work hours a week, and it's absolutely tearing me apart. But it's still pretty good.
Yeah. How did you come up with or decide to say "Don't be a Marnus" on the channel?
Right. Yeah, people always ask me this question, like, where does this come from? So
I imagine it's a bit of New Zealand slang, but
it is. Yeah. So Marnus, it's a dead slang here, and I don't know why I was saying it again at that time. Because it's almost like the equivalent of bell end, but not as as sort of intense almost. Like it's just like, don't be an idiot, bro. Like any of this stuff, like it was a bit of a light slang, but we all knew what it meant. It sort of died out in the early 2000s, but it was something that was ingrained in me through watching it on pop culture all the time. And then all of a sudden I was just saying it for a while around about the time. And I don't know why, I just needed some kind of outro sting almost. And then it literally, I just wrote it down. Like I don't know where it came from. It's just one of those things where you just subconsciously write. Keep it respectful, be wholesome, don't be a Marnus. And as always, I'll see you all later. And now that's it at the end of every video.
Yeah.
Like it's all a happy accident. This is all it is. It's all just a happy accident. I don't try and find stuff. It's just that they just become the thing. So I'm just sort of Forrest Gumping my way through F1 YouTube at the moment, and it seems to be sort of working, I suppose.
Yeah, to be fair, I feel like if you try too hard to kind of always hit the popular things and always, like try and tailor your videos to be like the most like per topic that's going to really, like churn the algorithm or whatever. I feel like that's when you get these channels that kind of, they go big and then they die out and they get like, their view count is like 5% of their subscribers or something, like that. And you can just tell like the creators kind of doesn't really have the passion for it anymore. I feel like you kind of have to make videos that you just want to make. If you kind of be too, clever with it, you're not going to be sustainable, is it? Like you said, 70, 80-hour work week. You're not going to be able to do that if you don't want to just really want to make these videos.
There are going to be days where you're going to be like, I do not want to touch anything to do with work. I don't want anything to do with work, even though you love it to death. So if you're not totally invested in it, 2 or 3 months down the line, you're going to burn out and you're not going to want to do it. I've seen a great many YouTubers with the same thing. And I keep on trying to tell them, they say, how do I get this many subscribers? This is like, you're asking the wrong question straight out of the gate. Like, what are you doing this for? It's like, I want to be famous. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to answer you anymore.
If you want to be famous, honestly, there's probably easier ways of doing it than trying to grind a YouTube channel for like years, isn't there? You're probably better off just trying to go on reality TV or something.
even more besides having, I wouldn't really grab what I got as fame at all. I know I've almost got 200,000 subscribers, but anytime you do meet someone in real life, it's cool, like you're just like, hey, it's cool to see you're a fan of the channel and everything. That is after the first 5 or 6 seconds where they struggle to say a word. It's like, and you're like, do I need to call emergency services? Are you all right? but
because it's just like, it's not obvious.
It's jarring. Well, it's jarring though, because I'm still just the same bloke. You know, I'm still just living life as I normally do. I'm just sitting in front of a computer a little bit longer than I probably should. But you know, I still live in the same neighborhood, interacting with the same people. It's not registering to me how big the sub count is. To others, it's like this seemingly unattainable goal. But again, for me, it's all just a bonus of living out what I want to do, which is just tell stories about F1 and do it while, you know, some people laugh at my shitty drawings. So, yeah, living the life, man, living the life.
Yeah, fair play. Well, I think I'll call it a day there. I hope you don't mind that we went a bit over an hour. Will would not stop talking. I think we went like 2.5 hours.